I'd like to call the regular council meeting for the town of Bay-Westfield for Monday, November 25th, 2024 to order at 7 o'clock p.m. We respectfully acknowledge that Bay-Westfield exists on the traditional Woolastook land. The lands of Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between equal nations. The river that runs by our town is known as Woolastook, along which live Woolastookwe, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. We, the staff and elected representatives, pay respect to the elders past and present and descendants of this line. Good evening, everybody, and I'd like to acknowledge that we have quite a gallery of attendees here with us tonight. Thank you for joining us. And thank you again for joining us, everybody that's also online for this important meeting, during which the 2025 municipal budget will be presented for council's consideration. The development of this budget has been guided by our steadfast commitment to serving the needs of our community while ensuring prudence and long-term sustainability and resilience. This budget continues to focus on affordability while also planning for the future. And it's not just about managing today, it's about making sure Bay-Westfield remains strong, vibrant, and ready for whatever comes next. This budget invests in projects and services that make our community more resilient, from upgrading infrastructure to preparing for the effects of climate change to ensuring that our town has the resources to grow sustainably. These are investments that will serve us all for years to come. It's not just a financial plan, it's a blueprint for our community's future, a future that addresses today's challenges while preparing for those ahead. We've worked very hard to strike the right balance, keeping the tax burden as low as we can, seeing today's fiscal realities, while making smart investments in the things that matter most to residents. So thank you for being here, for watching, and for caring about the future of the town of Bay-Westfield. And together, we're building a stronger community. So let's get started. Record of attendance. Let the record reflect that we have everyone here today with the exception of Councillor Dave, who sends her regrets. Item 5, agenda approval. The motion is that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield approve the agenda of November 25th, 2024 as presented, with a small exception of switching 7, B, and C. Do I have a motion? Councillor Bailman, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Balcom. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 6, disclosure of conflict of interest. Are there any? There being none, we'll move on to item 7, public hearings, presentations, delegations, petitions. And 7A is our bi-yearly good news story. It's the presentation of community grants, and I think it's really important to highlight that we're just facilitating the work of a bunch of really amazing groups that work together to make our town a better place for everybody. And so I know you say thank you when you come and accept the checks, but I say thank you to all of you for the work that you do to help our community grow and thrive and be the amazing place that we all know it is. So I'll call you all up one by one to get your check. So the first one is the BGC Club, Greater St. John, for the Flex Your Head project. And thank you very much. Our next one is Inglewood School for Equipping the Community project. Thank you very much. And we have River Valley Middle School for the Football Uprights project. We have the River Valley Middle School Home and School for the Beach Volleyball Court Sand project. Thank you. We have the St. Augustine Cemetery for the Memorial Garden project. Thank you so much. And then we have the YMCA Southwestern New Brunswick to the Glen Carpenter Center Summer Camp Access Program. So thank you everybody for coming, and again, thank you for all the work that you do. We can't do it alone, and we appreciate each and every one of you. So thank you. And you don't actually have to stay for the budget presentation. You're welcome to leave if you want to go home. Thanks again for coming. Report Q2. We have Sergeant Ben Conley here with us tonight. Welcome, Sergeant. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Your Worship and Councillors, for having me again today. First, we'll move to the RSC report that should have been provided to you for the second quarter of 2024-2025. Recently, we went over the first quarter, so I'm glad we have the second one to move forward with here today. So. First on page 3, you'll see a steep increase in, a constant increase in tickets and warnings and curfew checks and crime reduction strategies there as well. These tickets are continuing, and what we did see the increase, as I expected, was in our selective traffic enforcement files. This year that's not captured, or sorry, in this quarter that's not captured, it went up from 54 to 107 this quarter. So that's when a police officer is picking a specific spot on the road, a visible spot, to catch speeders or catch school zone violations or people passing school bus, something that's important to the community and needs attention. So 107 of those happened in the 3 months, and then 11 check stops as well. So if you go to page 6, you will see a significant increase in overall occurrences this quarter. If you remember last report, it was 228, and we're up to 369, which looks like a steep and maybe concerning increase, but just want to assure you that it's almost completely due to increase in traffic enforcement, increase in tickets, and increase in warnings, and increase in the members being out there. We're not really seeing a statistical change in property crime, crimes against a person, or anything in that nature. So we're talking tickets and police intervention there. So traffic offenses also went from 82 to 217. On page 10, you'll get a quick visual of where these tickets and warnings were wrote through the RSC and through Grand Bay. You'll see quite the concentration in Grand Bay, Highway 7, Highway 102, and elsewhere in the area. But I think there's a good speckling across that map there as well. But are always open for other areas of concern, as we hear from the community quite often, and happy we do. So, that is still remains kind of probably the biggest concern I hear from our community members when I'm out at Tim Hortons or where or not the Legion for breakfast. People come by with their traffic concerns, and that affirms that it's important for our annual plan and something that we're ready to address. So if you go to page 11, it's the page with the quarterly report on the J Division Operations Communication Center. Lots of numbers and percentages there to look at, but what I did pick up on that the OCC was able to reduce the wait time on their non-emergency line by almost 2 minutes this quarter, so that was good. And I also saw that there was less time on the phone, so there could be a correlation there. I don't know the exact reason how they were able to get it down, but I'm just happy they did, and I hope we continue with that trend. So for our annual strategy, or sort of what we talked about last year, I truly believe that community policing and crime reduction is still two of the main things, and a lot of the crime reduction strategy will be accomplished through both the traffic that we talked about and the community policing aspects. So this, since my last attendance, we did participate in a lockdown drill at one of the schools. We visited every school. We were at 4 Remembrance Day services in addition to our school visits at each school, which was very adorable. If you were there, it was a great time to be there. And then we also rallied a decent present at the Grand Bay Remembrance Day service as well. We had 14 RCP officers in attendance, 8 members in Red Surge, 3 were able to come in uniform, help with traffic flow, and then also our RCP chaplain. He said he's never been invited to one before, so I'm glad he could come and enjoy ours as his first one. So we're also involved in the off-road Christmas parade. That was just yesterday. And we took 2 aspiring RCP officers out on a ride-along since our last meeting, and that's something that's we did get away from for a bit because of liability reasons, but we're starting to bring those back into something we do. So if anybody's in the application process, we definitely want to make sure they know what the job is like before they their first days out with after training. So so we do have to wait until these people are in the application process. You can't do it just to see if the job will be like you, unfortunately. But the other people we can take out as elected officials. So with a waiver, of course. But if anybody's interested in coming to see what policing's like, or to get more knowledge of our job or how we can work together, please contact me. So. And then there's a bunch of other community things that I know our members are doing. We're not doing the best at capturing them. Maybe not always in uniform. Maybe sometimes they are, and sometimes they're just informal things. But I hope they pay dividends, especially with the youth in the future. But stuff like going to church, pickleball, little parades, breakfasts, and Prop 2 at the daycare, letting the kids see the police car. I know there was some kids running towards our police truck the other day to see who can go fastest with the radar, to test out their speed. No one broke 30, but they did pretty well. So, and then just to touch on administrative quick, I know we were short on time, but Constable Harris did arrive last week for his first shift. He got in 2 big shifts, so not quite the senior police officer we're looking for, but he's working his way up there. Experienced police officer that came over from the military police, Constable Mike Rousel, just finished his training there today, so he is up and ready to go, and he's doing well. Constable Catherine Payne was supposed to be here today. She got called away to something, but she was excited to meet you all. She's very community-minded, and she's engaged in her field training as we speak, and it's been strongly suggested, maybe even mandated, that her community project or project she has to do is going to be on scooter safety in the community. So researching what we can do to help with that, or what other municipalities have done, maybe bylaws that could help, but probably more than likely similar to bike rodeos, maybe scooter rodeos and some things that we can do along those lines. So legislation is not, how do I say that? We're not really, Traffic Safety Act doesn't really address scooters because it's so new, and the Traffic Safety Act's a little bit older, but I think there's still ways that we can work to keep our kids safe, but still enjoying the outdoors, still going to their friends and getting out and staying active. So, and then, so with all that, that does bring us up to 12 members here in Grand Bay out of what we want for 13, and our 13th has a transfer notice is expected anytime. Don't have an exact date, but I'm hopefully December, January, probably at the latest. That'll bring us up to full strength, and but we have to say goodbye to a colleague. So. And then last thing for member wellness, I did pass on your kind words, Your Worship, from last meeting, which went a long ways. We've had at least one team building event, and we're preaching mental and physical health all the time. And we're looking at little things like, I think the St. John ambulance dog is going to come visit for, the therapy dog is going to come visit for the shift change, just for something different, for bring a little light to the Members' Day when sometimes they go to some bad calls. Oh, and the very last thing is I have not forgot about the open house that I offered. I've just been house cleaning and home cleaning a lot, and I don't want to feel embarrassed when you guys came over. So I'm hoping it's very close, and maybe we can work together to find a day before the Christmas holidays or shortly after New Year's. Hopefully we can find something to have you all over for a visit and tour the office.
Thank you, Sergeant. I will open the floor up to questions from council. Anybody have any questions for the Sergeant? Wow. Oh,
You did a great job.
Hi,
Hi.
thanks for coming. It's really just a comment, but I'm really happy to hear that there's some focus on scooter safety. That makes me really nervous, and the age people, little ones on the electric scooters. So, yeah, I'm really happy to hear about that.
Thank you. You're not the only one that heart sinks a little bit sometimes when you see stuff happen, so.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just a few comments, Sergeant. I had my son come up to me this weekend. He said, "You weren't kidding when you said that you wanted to increase traffic enforcement." He said, "I couldn't go anywhere on Saturday night where we didn't see an officer." And I said, "Well, that's great news." So it's visible. So, you know, as you said, traffic safety is a priority for council, it's a priority for the RCMP. But I'm hearing more and more from the community that the members are being seen and being out there. And so that's something I didn't hear for a long time. I heard we never see them. Now I'm hearing I'm seeing them everywhere. That is exactly what I want to hear. So
let us know when you see us too much.
no, as far as I'm concerned, no, I like the fact that people know you're there, and that will change their behavior, and that's really important. I love hearing about how you're really embedding in the community, and the members are embedding in the community. That's really, really important. I have a quick question about our local businesses. That's something that I had heard in the past, that they didn't know who our officers were and they wanted a better relationship with them. Have you started making inroads in that respect, or have you been too busy doing all the other things that you've been doing so far?
Well, the landfill's definitely tired of seeing me come with rubbish from the office in my spring cleaning, but no, maybe I overestimated what I could achieve with them in a month, and underestimated hopefully what I can achieve with a year. But we have been able to visit a couple of the bars, some of the licensed premises, grocery stores. So I would say not as many as I wanted to yet, Your Worship, but at least 5 or 6 stop-ins, and maybe even a couple more to that. We're prioritizing first on places with higher theft and maybe impaired drivers, but moving down the road as we go.
Well, thank you, appreciate it. I knew you've been to the grocery store because I have gone into you there, so. That's wonderful. Do we have any other questions for Sergeant before we let him go for the evening? No. Again, thank you very much for your work. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. So the motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the information as presented. Do I have a motion? Deputy Mayor Toole, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Burpee, any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. 7B, we have a presentation from Andrew Beckett, the CEO of Envision St. John, with an update. Thank you for joining us today, Andrew, we appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to be in Grand Bay-Westfield, Your Worship.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. It's nice to see the lights coming in. The town's looking very good. I'm going to go through a lot of material very quickly in the interest of leaving a little bit of time for you for questions, because I know you've got a busy agenda otherwise. But I've got a few items that I think warrant consideration for council. Rob, do I have control of this? Yes. Excellent. Oh, there we go. So just a quick reminder in terms of Envision and what we do. We spend a lot of time bringing people together to have discussions and take actions that are aimed at growing the region. Our objective is to create successful strategies and a thriving ecosystem that attracts and sustains investment in the region. We've arranged our services in accordance with the mandate that was given to us when the agency was originally formed. They're real estate development, economic intelligence, regional destination marketing and sales, population growth, entrepreneurship and business growth, and workforce development. Each of these areas are quite busy. We've got a team now, a total of 20 people that work for us. I think last year when I put up the organization chart, there was a lot of vacancies in the organization chart. That's not the case anymore. We've been fully staffed for just over a year now. We have our services are offered in 6 different languages, which I think is good for the increasing the diversity in the region. So we're quite pleased with the diversity of our employee base. And the team's very busy in a lot of areas. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in that regard. I've given you the link in the presentation that was provided that takes you to the accountability and transparency page on the agency's website. There we provide quarterly updates in terms of the activities that we're involved in. I think the most recent one to the end of October was about 9 pages long. That's just point form. It just speaks to the activities that we're involved in. Our financial statements are also on that page. I would encourage you, if you have an opportunity, to go through the activity reports. If there's anything that tweaks an interest or that you want more information about, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to provide more information on any of the items that we're involved in. Next piece that I wanted to quickly switch gears into is some work that we've been doing for the past 9 months around developing 2 regional plans. When I say regional plans, these aren't plans for the agency. They're plans that the agency will have a role in terms of helping move forward with. But these were plans, an economic development plan and a tourism master plan that have been developed with the community and using a consultant to really sort of draw out the areas that we feel are strengths for the region and how we're going to continue to build on to grow the region moving forward. As I mentioned, it took about 9 months to develop the plans. There were steering committees made up of community members that guided both plans. We had one for the tourism plan and one for the economic development strategy. We did surveys of residents and businesses. We had about 1,000 responses to a survey from residents and businesses. We had about 500 responses to a separate survey that we did of visitors that have come to the region to get their feedback. So I think well researched from that standpoint. There were also an extensive number of interviews done with individual business owners throughout the region to get their input individually. We did a series of round tables, 7 for the economic development strategy, 4 for the tourism strategy, that brought together people in various sectors within the region to get their input. We also did 2 workshops that were associated with them, where we had 50 people for the economic development strategy and 30 for the tourism strategy. All of that just to point out that these are very much plans that have been developed with an extensive amount of community input from across the region to come up with the plans. So we're quite pleased with the support we had. I thought it spoke really well to the interest in terms of developing the plans, that when we reached out to people to be part of the steering committees, we didn't have anybody say no. So we were really pleased with the type of input that we got through the process. What I want to quickly touch on, and that link that I provided previously in terms of the link to our page, both of these plans are there on that page as well, so that you can go through them in detail. I'm not going to cover off all the detail. The plans themselves have a series of supporting reports. The binder is about 2.5 inches thick, of the supporting reports, so they're very well researched to give us the input in terms of the directions that we want to focus on. So very quickly, in terms of the economic development strategy, it comes up with 4 priority areas as relates to industry sectors that we want to focus on going forward. Those 4 are leading Atlantic Canada's energy transition. So again, building on the assets that we have in this region associated with energy and looking at the transitions to clean energy. See a great number of opportunities in terms of potential investments in that regard, and we're doing a deeper dive on that now. There's a lot of interest in investment in the region associated with the clean energy transition. We want to leverage the Port of St. John as a catalyst for investment, so we're looking at a number of different ways that hopefully, with the increased traffic that's coming through the port, first and foremost, it is a major employer. There's a lot of jobs been added over the last several years. I think it's about 500 that have been added in the last 4 or 5 years associated with port-related activities, so it's a growing area. But we also want to try and identify ways that we can make the cargo more sticky. We want it to stick around here a little bit longer and not just be a flow-through in the region. So if we can find ways that we can have some of that cargo stay around and maybe get into some light manufacturing or assembly operations in the region, it's a good way for us to try and build the economy in that regard. Health and technology is another sector we've identified. You look at the cluster of assets that we've got in the region with the regional hospital, the UNB St. John with its integrated health initiative. We've got Dal Med School here. We've got the Allied Health Building with MBCC. plus a number of different local businesses that are associated in various ways with health and technology that we want to try and build on that brain power to look at ways to increase research activity and hopefully see some businesses develop that can be export ready. And the final one from an industry sector is tourism. Probably no surprise as a destination marketing agency, but also our region has a wealth of significant assets in terms of the tourism side, and we see that that's an area that can build, and I'll go into that a little bit more detail when we get to the tourism master plan. To support those 4 industry sectors, there's also 2 other areas that have been identified as priorities in terms of growing the economy of the region. First, we want to make sure that we've got a good workforce ecosystem in place that supports the ever-changing needs within the workforce, and that's I guess the 2 main pushes that I'd see on that are making sure that our youth in the area are aware of the opportunities that are here for future employment, so hopefully we can retain and attract more youth back to the region. But also with the introduction of new technologies in the workplace, we want to make sure that there's good retraining opportunities always available to make sure that our current workforce is able to adapt to the changing needs. So we do a lot of work just generally within the ecosystem to try and promote that. And then finally, we don't want to lose sight of the businesses that we've got here. We know that a significant amount of the growth of the region is going to come from existing businesses, and so we're launching a business retention and expansion program to do more outreach with local businesses. We want to make sure that they're aware of the supports that are available to them through different areas, and also do a lot of reach out to existing companies to find out where their pain points are, where we can possibly add value in terms of supports for them going forward. So that's the economic development plan. With the tourism plan, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail in terms of this one. There's 8 priority areas that have been identified in the tourism master plan. Again, what it really highlights is this was a really interesting process to go through. The consultant we used does a lot of work in the tourism space. They approach it from the standpoint of the future visitor. And looking at visitor trends and what we've got to offer as a region. Their comments were this region has an abundance of things to offer to people with a very heavy focus on outdoor experiences, which plays well in terms of the region. So certainly some of the areas that they highlighted were advancing the region's infrastructure. No surprise here, the airport came up both in this strategy and the previous strategy as a bit of a pain point that we want to work with the airport to try and improve our connectivity. Building on the cruise ship business, cycling came up in a couple of different areas. It came under expanding outdoor recreation as well. Mountain biking is a big destination activity these days that we think this region's got great opportunities in that. Enhancing tourist attractions. The investment that's being made in the New Brunswick Museum was one that came up very loudly, that we need to really look at ways that we can build on that and promote it as a significant destination. But I would say that the consultants also challenged us to take a look at some of our existing attractions and maybe refresh them a bit or figure out what they are. And the one that came out loud and clear on that was Reversing Falls Rapids. It said, when you go there, it's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of what it is, what story you tell behind it, and so the consultants were very pointed about saying you got to decide what it is or basically get out of it. But it's so they were quite candid in terms of that. There were things like culinary tourism. It was interesting. It was interesting in this regard that our local residents didn't feel that there was enough culinary opportunities. Our visitors told us it was one of the strongest attractions to the area is the diversity of culinary. We think what's behind that is our local residents are looking for more culinary experiences, not just places to go to eat. And so we're looking at how we can work with local businesses in terms of maybe capitalizing on some of that. I guess the other one that I'd mention is elevating the visitor experience. What we noted there was a real need to recognize that everybody's carrying a smartphone these days, and we have to have more of our assets available for navigation in a digital form. So we're doing a lot of work. In fact, we held a workshop last week with some local tourism operators that was focused around digital optimization and ways that they can improve their digital presence. So that's something, again, that we want to build on. All of that under a backdrop of making sure that we stay committed to stewardship. That's where we build in things like environmental stewardship, reconciliation, so our work with the indigenous population, and embracing sustainable practices when it comes to tourism as well. We want to make sure that the region is left better off, not worse off, by the visitors that we attract. So an ambitious plan, but we're working, associated with both these plans. There were detailed action plans that came with both, and we're working through those, and we're going to be engaging a lot of community partners to help us move forward with those plans over the next several years. So looking ahead, what we're working on now is the agency strategic plan. We're entering year 5 for the agency. So it's time for us to relook at our strategic plan. I think given that we've now been in operation for 4 years, I think we understand a little bit more what we're supposed to be doing. And after some initial growing pains, I think we've hit our pace in that regard. And so we want to revisit our strategic plan to set out make sure that we've got clear direction on that for the next several years moving forward. We're also working on a regional immigration strategy, which I would say is very timely given revised federal targets on immigration. We're quite concerned in terms of the implications that has for growth in the region and workforce requirements in the region. Something that we've already talked to the local MLAs about to try and get more of a push on maybe not a one-size-fits-all in terms of the federal government, in terms of how they allocate the immigration numbers, because I think the maritime provinces could benefit from maybe getting a little bit higher percentage of the cut numbers. See how that goes. I mentioned that we're doing a business retention and expansion program. And finally, we are doing a joint bid with Moncton, or preparing a joint bid with Moncton for the 2029 Canada Games. And so I wanted to take a couple of minutes to provide you with a backdrop around the Canada Games. I don't have specific slides on this, so I'm going to rattle through a lot of numbers very quickly. So in terms of the Canada Games, it's the largest multi-sport event that's held in Canada. There's about 4,600 participants that take part in the Games. It's held over an 18-day competition period in 18 different sports. And it takes about 5,000 or so volunteers to put on the Games. So it's a very big undertaking. The Summer Games were last held in St. John in 1985. 2029 is the next time that it's New Brunswick's turn to host the Summer Games in 29. And rather than going it in competition with each other, St. John and Moncton have decided to prepare a joint bid that then our objective is to reduce the capital expenditures that are required and to really be able to showcase the province through the bid process. So the games are held every 2 years. Winter Games 1 year, 2 years later Summer Games, and it goes in that cycle on an ongoing basis. It's been held in 22 different communities across the country. It represents athletes that come from about 700 different communities across the country. And the economic impact, each time the games are held, they do a detailed economic impact assessment. When it was held in PEI recently, the Winter Games, the economic impact was measured at $212 million for the province and $195 million for the cities of Charlottetown and Summerside. Huge potential economic impact in terms of tourism and drawing people to the community, not only for the games, but before, after the games, and showcasing the region on a more broad basis. In terms of what's required, in terms of hosting the games, it's not a small undertaking. There's a minimum capital requirement that is made up of contributions from the federal government, provincial government, and municipal governments, totaling $9 million, $3 million each from each level of government. The operating budget for the games is about $35 million. Most of that money comes from, there's about $11 million or so that comes from the federal government, about $8 or $9 million that comes from the province. There's sponsorships that are gone after in terms of the private sector sponsorships, some other various forms. And we are seeking contribution from the municipalities equal to $3 million for the operating budget. So that's $1.5 million each from Moncton area and from the St. John region. So if you sort of work backwards on that, $3 million required for capital, which is split between Moncton and St. John, so it's $1.5 million each, and $3 million for operating, split between the two, so it's a total contribution of $3 million. What you get back straight away, because this all starts under the umbrella of the fact that this is going to make use of regional facilities. The aquatic center is in need of upgrades and repairs. The games will receive $3 million from the local municipalities, but will be turning back $3.5 million for the aquatic center renovations. So that money is returned back to the local community right away in terms of it. There is also a requirement, and this is one of your worship, this is one of your favorites. There is also a requirement in the motions that get passed for the to host the games, is that the host municipalities have to agree to be responsible for any financial deficit associated with the games. Now, I can imagine that sends a lot of shudders down people's spine when you've read stories about 1976 Olympics and others that have left communities pretty devastated with significant deficits. That is not the Canada Games. The Canada Games has a history of actually generating a surplus. The last several games, their surplus has been in the order of $3 to $5 million. And that creates a lasting legacy that's left in the community to support amateur sport. When the games were held here in 1985, they had a surplus. That fund is still in play and administered by a local board that hands out bursaries and scholarships to athletes that are pursuing different athletic endeavors. The bid committee that's co-chaired by Bill McMacken in St. John, Louis Legier in Moncton, has been working through, and I'm part of the bid committee, and that's putting on a different hat now. I've actually agreed to be part of the bid committee to be the finance chair for the bid. We've spent the last 6 weeks or so torturing the budget associated with the games. As of last week, I think we're finally to a point where we're satisfied we can deliver the games with, at very least, a break even. And our drive is to make sure that there is a surplus that's going to be a legacy, but we're quite comfortable in terms of where we are as far as the operating budget. Most of that is contractually sort of tied, that we've got memorandums of understanding in terms of some of the major expenditure areas, so we feel quite comfortable with it. Some of the variable costs that you might be concerned about, things like travel for athletes, actually aren't part of the budget for the games. They're covered by the federal government. So all the travel costs associated with the athletes are covered separately. That's the backdrop on the games. We are approaching it in the St. John area as a regional bid because we think there's regional benefits for it, and it uses the regional facility, so it seemed like a logical exercise to go through the region on that side of things, but part of the roadshow this year is to make sure that each of the councils are aware of that too, so that if you've got any questions or any concerns, I can hopefully try and address those to equip the mayor to be in a position to consider the matter when it comes before the Regional Service Commission. That's the highlights. There's a lot of other background information on any and all of that I'm happy to go through separately at any point in time if you want to reach out, but if you have any questions at this point in time, I'm happy to try to address them.
Thank you, Andrew. That was a lot of information in a very short time. So thank you for that. I'll open the floor for any questions from council. Have any questions from council for Andrew on any of the information he's presented?
Councillor, about the Canada Games, do you know of any other municipalities that are putting a bid in?
Actually, no. Like I mentioned, it is New Brunswick's turn to host. We will be the only bid that's being made from New Brunswick. Now, Canada Games could say no. We still have to go through the bid process. The bid is due the end of January, and then they do a review of it in the sort of February. I think they're doing a roadshow. They do a review of the bids in February and meet with us. If they're not satisfied that we're ready to host, they can go to another province. So it is a reasonably rigorous process we have to go through. It's not a given that we're going to get the award of the games, but we feel quite confident with what's been put forward at this point in time that we'll be in a good position to be successful with the bid, subject to the approval of the hosts the host communities to actually host it.
Any other questions? Again, that was a great overview of what's been going on. The plans that Envision has been working on for the last better part of a year, they look really impressive. I haven't done a deep dive, but One of my questions was going to be about the regional immigration strategy. You addressed that. It's a real concern here in New Brunswick. The federal government does tend to do things. This is the solution for everybody, and maybe that's not the case for us here in New Brunswick, particularly when we're looking at workforce development.
Well, David Campbell's put out some really interesting numbers over the last while. On a population trend standpoint, we're losing 3,200 people a year right now. Deaths are outpacing births by 3,200. If we don't have more immigrants coming in, our population is going to decline, and we're not going to be able to meet our workforce requirements. That should be everybody's concern.
Well, if there are no further questions, Andrew, I will let you go again. Thanks for taking the time and coming to present to council. We appreciate it.
Pleasure being here. Again, if you've got any other questions, happy to address them. It's getting close to the holiday season, so it's probably appropriate to wish everybody all the best for the holiday season. To you and your families, I hope you have an enjoyable season, and all the best for next year. Looking forward to continuing our work with you.
Thank you. The motion is that the council of the town of Granby Westfield receive and file the information as presented. Do I have a motion? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence, and a second, Councillor Bailmans. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 8, minutes of previous meeting. 8A, regular council minutes of October 28th, 2024. The motion is that the council of the town of Granby Westfield adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of October 28th, 2024 as presented. Do I have a motion? Councillor Burpee, and it was a second by Deputy Mayor Toole. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. 8B, special council minutes of November 12th, 2024. The motion is that the council of the town of Granby Westfield adopt the minutes of the special meeting of November 12th, 2024 as presented. Do I have a motion? Councillor Burpee, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. 8C, email poll, Shannon Road Overland Drainage. The motion is that the council of the town of Granby Westfield ratify the email poll, Shannon Road Overland Drainage. I have a motion. Councillor Bailmans, thank you. It was a second from Deputy Mayor Toole. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 9, unfinished business. There being none, we'll move on to 10, bylaws. There being none, we'll move on to item 11, new business recommendations. 11A, 2025 budget approval, and I will pass that over to the CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know what more we can say after our presentation last week. As you iterated in your opening statements, we've tried to balance everything out. Excuse me. What we think we have here is a fair budget that reflects meeting Council's strategic plan and delivering on core services. The primary driver of the increase is due to inflation. So of the increase that we're experiencing, well more than half is due to inflation, and less than half is due to an increase in service. That increase in service was primarily around succession planning. We have 2 long-term employees retiring in 2025.
Thank you. We have any questions for the CAO on the budget as presented? There being none, we'll move on to the motions. And it's 11A1, capital budget. The motion is that the council of the town of Granby Westfield move that the 2025 capital budget in the amount of $3,914 be adopted as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Councillor Balcom, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Bailmans, thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 11A2, General Operating Fund. The motion is that the council of the town of Granby Westfield approves the following. The sum of $8,871,680 be the total operating budget of the local government of Granby Westfield for the 2025 fiscal year. The sum of $8,043,940 be the warrant to the local government for the 2025 fiscal year. The tax rate for Ward 1 will be $1.25 for the 2025 fiscal year. The tax rate for Ward 2 will be 7.7432 cents for the 2025 fiscal year. The levying by the Minister of Local Government and Local Governance Reform of said amount on real property liable to taxation under the Assessment Act within the local government of Grand Bay-Westfield. Do I have a motion? Deputy Mayor Toole, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. John?
Yes, Your Worship, we requested feedback,
Yes.
and we received 3 emails from members of the public. One was from a childcare provider who wanted to understand what was going on and see the opportunity, so I'll be meeting with them next week. We had another question wondering what happens when the rate is proposed at $1.25. So that's $1.25 is charged for every $100 of value assessed to a property. And then finally, we had someone from Ward 2 provide a rather long question about the tax differential between Ward 1 and Ward 2 and the tax rate. And noting his, I'm assuming it's a he, observation that the tax rate in the town in Ward 1 has gone down while that in Ward 2 has gone up. Well, first, we're required by law that we follow budget allocation according to provincial regulations, and they declare what we can and cannot do. And when you look at, let me find my note here. So for shared services, those are divided up with each ward, but there are things that happen in Ward 1 that does not get charged to Ward 2. So for an example, transportation, including capital and debt payments for equipment and infrastructure. Ward 2 has something that Ward 1 does not have, which is garbage and curbside recycling collection. So those are treated differently, and each is assigned. And as the province allows only 5 cents in the tax rate increase per annum, and anything like if there's an increase in regional costs, if there's an increase in service, those can be charged above and beyond that. So that allows for a part of the difference. So then the question was also around, they live in Ward 2, do they pay for Ward 1 sewage? No, you only pay for the sewage that you're connected to. So people in Ward 1, they receive an invoice from the finance department. They'll be sending something out in January, and that only goes to those approximately 1,500 homes that are connected in Ward 1. In Ward 2, in Salmon Rock, where Councillor Burpee lives, they get an invoice from the province annually for the water or wastewater system that's provided there. That's not something that the town provides. We don't look after utilities just like we don't look after the roads. So sewage doesn't count there. The person also asked, the new works garage, are we billing that to Ward 2? No, we are not, because we do not provide transportation services such as snow plowing or pothole fixing in Ward 2. So that's not it. Now the big question is, what about the distinction between the tax rate? And as we indicated, and when local governance reform was implemented, the idea was to bring some type of equity between the different boards, and that would take, I think, up to 7 years, right? So that's what we're on track for. But I think really what people, what we spent a lot of time talking about in the presentation was not the tax rate. Look at the tax burden. How much is being shared, or how much is being charged to the property? So when you can compare about a $300,000 $300,000 home in 2024 was assessed this year at $327,600. And because of the tax rate of $1.25 that was applied here for 2025, the tax bill for someone will be $4,095. which is an increase of about $165 or a handful of cup of Starbucks or something like that every month. Now, if you take that same home in Ward 2, call it Councillor Burke's house, $300,000. It was assessed this year, 2025, at $327,600. And we applied the tax rate that went up in Grand Bay, in Ward 2, more than Ward 1. What they'll find is that their taxes went up, but it's still more than $300 less than someone paying property tax on the same value property in Ward 1. So yes, the property tax rates are going in opposite directions, but people living in Ward 2 are still, their tax burden is less. So, and the differential is not quite 10%, it's just over 8%. James, you want to add anything to my remarks?
Well, I think that's a very good summary, John. And as we continue along the path of the next few years of budgets, we will see a convergence of those rates as we follow the guidance from the province.
And again, I think I just still want to note, Your Worship, that the province also charges a tax rate to Ward 2. Nobody really recalls when the last time that was changed. We've had a lot of discussion here about the impact of inflation. I said earlier in my remarks that I think it's about 4.5% of that increase that we're doing, we're increasing 6.6%, 4.5% of that 6.6 is inflation. So the tax burden is still considerably less in Ward 2.
Thank you. If, any questions or comments on the motion or further questions for the CAO or CFO? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to 11A3, sewerage utility. And I'll pass that over to the CAO to talk about that particular budget.
Thank you, Your Worship. We really don't have any capital work planned for sewage this year. Really, what we're doing is this is a user pay system. And one of our targets is to increase reserves and to ensure that our operating expenses are ongoing. One of the things that we are doing that will have an impact on future capital is the infiltration and inflow study. We do have aging infrastructure. We seem to have a lot of seepage. Our lagoon is processing about twice as much content, for lack of a better word, than what we anticipate given our population. So we really need to to develop a better understanding of it. Are there infrastructure pieces throughout the community that we can address, or do we have to look at a more expensive price tag of enhancing our lagoon? Neither one is really appetizing, but we have to do something. We can't kick it down the road. But this budget really is looking after our operations, and the user rate, as we projected, I think 2 years ago, is going up a further $10, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the CAO or CFO before I read the motion? Then the motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield adopt the 2025 sewerage utility budget reflecting total revenue of $741,441 and total expenditures of $740,441 with a sewerage user rate of $380 per unit effective January 1st, 2025. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Bellmans. Do I have a second? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, Council, and a special thank you to all of the staff who have been working for months and months and months to put this budget together. We really appreciate it. We know you've worked very hard to be as creative as possible to find savings for our residents while still maintaining the budget we need to invest in municipalities. So thank you very much. We'll move on to 11B, community funding. 11BA, CMEI, and I'll pass this over to the CAO.
Yes, Your Worship. Each year we've been evolving the budget process. This year we took another step in that, both internally and externally, by inviting stakeholders to present to council. CMEI, which is the Crane Mountain Enhancement Incorporated, requested $15,000 for legal fees due to the height increase at the Crane Mountain landfill. Administration recommends that we not support the request. We are members of the Fundy Regional Service Commission. We oversee the landfill. Even though we lost, that the vote did not go the way that we would like it to, we have to respect the democratic process. We have to respect good governance. And good governance is that we go along with what the vote was. Administration cannot recommend that we fund a legal action contrary to what the decision was made, regardless whether or not we agree with it. However, council has directed administration at all times to try and find a way to yes. And so with that in mind, we're just suggesting, we're not saying this is what council has to do, but how do we find a way to yes? $2,000 for public education and awareness. If they want to do an education campaign or an awareness campaign, if they want to do workshops or something like that to raise attention about leachate or whatever, that money may be available. All we're trying to do here is say that we have a solution if council wants to fund CMEI. However, we strongly advise council not to fund legal fees for CMEI.
Thank you, John. Any questions or comments on Councillor McIntosh Lawrence?
Do we know if CMEI approached any other municipalities for funding? No. And how can we be sure that the $2,000 would go to education?
Well, you can indicate that, but Charities Act says that when you donate the money, then they can use it as best fit. So even though we can designate it, they can make their best effort, and if they decide that they don't really have a program to do that, then they can reallocate it or something. It's been a while since I've read that act, so I may be a little rusty on the wording, but it's to that effect.
So in the end, they still could use it for legal fees?
Potentially. I'm not saying they would, but potentially.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Toole?
I like the work that the CMEI does. I think it's important, but I think from what I'm looking at, I know we can't do the legal fees, and I know we said no to that, and if they do have funding mechanisms available for them, I'm just kind of worried about us throwing this in might get us into a bit of an area. I think we support them, we like what they do, but I think there's funding in place for them, so I'm comfortable with just keeping the regular funding and not.
Any other questions or comments from council on the motion? I'll remove myself from the chair for the moment, and just if the deputy mayor will agree to assume the chair while I give my thoughts on this. So CMEI, they do wonderful work. They're already funded by the Fundy Regional Service Commission, and in particular the landfill operations for the purposes of education, and they're choosing to use that funding for legal fees. So so this would be backstopping what they should be doing with those funds anyway, and I'm uncomfortable with that. So that's my thoughts on the motion, and I will now resume the chair, so thank you. We have any other questions or comments on the motion? So there being none, all in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is defeated. Thank you, council. Item 11B, the MB Medical Education Fund, and I'll pass it over to the CAO again.
Thank you, Your Worship. Memory serves me right, I believe they presented in August, and they're requesting scholarship money. What we're just suggesting is that the council discretionary funds in 2024 be used for that. Not very much has been used. The amount could be $2,000, it could be $4,000. Really, it's up to council how much they want to use. There are some limits to it, but anyways, it's just a suggestion that they do good work. There is a shortage of health professionals, not just physicians. But there is a way that council can provide money if they so desire.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions or comments on the motion? Or
So do we have the option of putting $4,000 in?
that would be at council's discretion.
I'm fine with it, but I don't cancel it.
So the suggestion was 2,000, but
So-
council can choose to,
Sorry, Your Worship, so we should read the motion,
yes.
okay, and then have mover, seconder, and then Councillor Valens. Well, just say I wanna make a friendly amendment that the amount be raised from $2,000 to 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever number that you choose. So okay, we'll do the motion, and then the councillor will ask to make an amendment. Okay?
Okay, I will do that. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield approves contributing $2,000 from council discretionary funds to the ND Medical Education Fund. Do I have a motion? Councilor McIntosh Lawrence, thank you. Do I have a second? Deputy Mayor Toole, thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? Councilor Bellamy?
Recommend committee $4,000.
So if so, with a friendly amendment, I will ask the mover and seconder if they are okay with that amendment or.
Yes.
Okay, so are there any questions or comments on the amended motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, council. We'll move on to 11C, SPCA contract, and I'll pass that over to the CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. So contract is up for renewal. And having talked with the SPCA and as has our animal control officer, we're not anticipating any issues. The rate is really quite nominal and the increases are nominal as well. And again, this is a service that we need on demand. We can't predict how often it'll be used or when it will be used. And at the end of the day, a lot of the fees are, try to be collected from the owner of the animal in question.
Thank you. So I'll read the motion. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize the mayor and CAO to sign the agreement with the SPCA at the annual amounts of 2025, $3,996, 2026, $4,068, 2027, $4,140. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Bellman. That was the second
Second.
from Councillor Balcom. Any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Burke.
So the SPCA, would this be the SPCA located in St. John?
Yeah, this is for animals that are picked up and then they have to be held somewhere.
Okay, so this is different and separate from the MB SPCA.
Yeah, so the MB SPCA currently provides animal control services in Ward 2 in the Road District. We'll be assuming those responsibilities. We still need a place to hold the animals.
So would this replace the MB SPCA, so you
No, no, this is just a
this is in
facility
addition to?
to hold the dogs. This is not an animal control service. Our current animal control officer for Ward 1 will be taking on Ward 2, totally different. And that was, as discussed, approved in the budget.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. 11D, Crisis Communications Plan. John?
Right. One of the mandate items for the communications officer was a crisis communications plan. This is an internal working document, it's before council, because it was a mandate. And for further details on the plan, I'll turn it over to the communications manager to elaborate.
Thank you, John. In alignment with the town's strategic priority of organizational capacity, I worked with
Transitional Solutions Inc. or TSI to formalize this interim document. The purpose of the plan is to support the town as an organization as well as the community through crisis situations. The core of the plan is divided into two parts. The first is acting as a quick reference guide and a toolkit in the event of an emergency with reactive information. And the second is providing a broader learning to ensure team members are prepared before a crisis ever occurs, proactive information. And I would like to extend my appreciation to my communication summer student Mohawk and Hannah for its assistance with this.
Thank you, Brock. I'll read the motion and open the floor for questions. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve the crisis communications plan for immediate effect. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Burpee. Any questions or comments on the motion?
Just a quick comment.
Yes.
I've seen a few crisis communications, this is really, really detailed and clear and stable, and I liked it, I actually learned a lot from it, I think it's a really good tool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions or comments? I just want to basically echo what the Deputy Mayor said. I thought it's an excellent document. It's really nice to have that box checked and with such a robust plan. Very happy with it. So thank you for the work. And if you see Mohawk, please extend my appreciation to him as well.
I will for sure, thank you.
There are no further questions or comments. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. 11E, Canada Community Building Fund 2024-2028. I'll pass this over to the CAO again.
Actually, I'm gonna delegate this over to the CFO. He's been a lot more hands-on than I have.
Thank you. Yes, Your Worship of Council, so the Canada Community Building Fund, or CCBF for short, or formerly known as the gas tax. This is funding that comes from the federal government, but is administered by the provincial government. So in 2023 was the last year of the previous agreement, and the new agreement will run from 2024 to 2033. So it's a 10-year agreement. However, in order to receive the funding, we need to provide a 5-year capital improvement plan that outlines what we plan on using the funding for. And traditionally, we've used that to supplement our street improvement plan. In the new agreement, we are required to provide a greater level of detail than we've previously provided. So in the new plan, between years 2025 and 2028, we need to detail and list down what we're going to do and where we're going to do it. So what streets are going to be repaved, what stormwater systems are going to be improved, that all needs to be detailed, and that is included in the plan in front of you this evening. If things change, because things change all the time, we do have the ability to amend that plan and have it updated.
Thank you, James. I'll read the motion and open the floor for questions. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield, 1, authorize the mayor and administration to sign the Canada Community Building Fund Agreement 2024 to 2023. 2, that the document titled Town of Grand Bay-Westfield 5-Year Capital Investment Plan for the Canada Community Building Fund, CCBF 2024-2028 be adopted. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh-Long. Then do I have a second? Councillor Burton, thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. And I just want to note that it was a hairy couple of months when we weren't sure that the agreement was going to be signed in time. But I want to thank the work of everybody at FCM and UMNB and all the PTAs across the country for advocating on behalf of municipalities just like us who have these funds baked into our capital plans for years to come. 11F, Neighborhood Caution Signs Policy. And John?
Thank you, Your Worship. These came out of a request of some people who moved to town regarding persons with disability, and this kind of got put on the back burner while we finished the budget. So anyways, basically, it's quite simple. A person with disabilities must reside with a parent or guardian in a home or other residential building located on a road managed by the town of Grand Bay-Westfield. We do not control the ability to erect signs on Salmon Rock or Campbell Road or Britain Road or Sunset Valley subdivisions. So there's no point in us saying, that this applies there. We just do not control it. But what we can do is if someone comes to us and say, hey, I need a sign because I have a child that doesn't appreciate or comprehend the danger, can we get a sign? And we'll say, we'll support you. We can write a letter of support. We can mention it to the MLA, myself, or the Public Works Commissioner. We can contact the people we know and say this request is coming through, here's why, and we'll have them fill out our form, and we won't share the medical documentation, but we'll just share the form why these people will be eligible under town bylaws. So we don't have any control counselor to erect signs in Ward 2, but we'll do everything we can to support them. I hope that's reasonable. And they must have a documented disability. And then finally, we just want to encourage parents to, go through the neighborhood and let their neighbors know. That really fundamentally is the best way to go about it. Door to door, I'm so-and-so, my child has this disability, or my 21-year-old son has this disability, and I just want you to meet them and be aware that when you're driving that they may be on the road. And then we have a draft application form as well for council. I believe communications is working on a job form application so that it can just be fed through online.
Thank you. I'll read the motion. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve the neighborhood caution signs policy effective immediately. Do I have a motion? Councillor Bellamans, thank you. Do I have a second? Deputy Mayor Toole. Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, council, and thanks to administration for putting this together. This is, it might seem like a small thing, but it's a really important way of showing that our residents that we really do care about them. Right? One of our values is justice, and one of the ways to display justice is ensuring that everybody can experience our community in the same way as anybody else in the community. We are safe walking down the road because we can see, we can hear, we recognize danger. This will help people that don't have the ability to do those things also experience the same safety that we do. John?
I was just going to say, council, I don't think there's a person on the administration side who didn't have input into this policy. It's probably one of the smallest ones we have, but I think almost everybody had to touch it at some point or another because it may not seem complex, but it actually is. It touches a lot of different people. And a special thank you to Nicole for her insight into this policy.
Yes, thank you very much. 11G, Christmas Parade Road Closure, and again, John, you're up.
So this is another good news story, and I think it's next Saturday, and the number of floats that are currently registered to enter is 42. The city had 46. And I'm quite sure because we're Grand Bay-Westfield, we'll have better weather than everybody else. I don't know what more I can say.
Okay, thanks, John. Well, I'll read the motion. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve the request for a temporary road closure of River Valley Drive between the southern boundary and River Valley Community Center between the hours of 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Saturday, December 1st, 2024 for the Grand Bay-Westfield Evening Christmas Parade, subject to the provisions of the traffic bylaw number 80. Is that the right date?
No, November 30th.
I thought it was November 30th.
November 30th.
Okay, let me back up. I was reading that and I was like, I don't think that's right. So, between the hours of 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Saturday, November 30th, 2024, for the Grand Bay-Westfield Evening Christmas Parade, subject to the provisions of the traffic bylaw number 80, the organizers are to confirm with RCMP, DTI, Ambulance New Brunswick, and Fire Rescue Department to ensure continuity of emergency services. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Burpee. Do I have a second? Councillor Balcom, thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you, and I encourage everybody to come out and enjoy the parade. The volunteers have put a ton of work into it, we really appreciate that. We'll move on to item 12, bills for payment. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize the November 25th, 2024 bills for payment as presented in the amount for $741,168.32. Do I have a motion? Councillor Burpee, and do I have a second? Deputy Mayor Toole, thank you. And any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor
Number
Bellman?
28, deluxe checks for $1,691.35. Deluxe says. Number 28.
I think that's new checks to be printed.
The checks that we purchased, we use these.
Oh, deluxe, okay, I didn't sure what it's for.
Sorry?
They're for checks, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
Any other questions or comments on the motion?
Just one question, Your Worship, to the CIO. Item number 93, Scotiabank Visa. Just want clarification that that's not one single card, that's all the cards that the senior staff and others who are designated and authorized to use cards, so it's not just one card that's being used.
That's right, Councillor. So we have a credit card policy, and we have 5 credit cards. One is for general government, that's kept in the safe. Public Works has a card, Planning and Development has a card, Recreation has a card, Fire Department has a card. And so when you see an $11,000 bill, that's spread amongst 5 different departments. General government may be used as a catch-all for different areas. For an example, part of that amount is all the hotel bills for UMNB are on there, as an example, and council supper. And then also council requested that for any amount over $1,000 that be included as well. There's only one in there, and that was we had 3 members of the senior staff, CFO, Fire Department Chief, and EA attend AMB, and that's for hotel rooms. $1,008.04.
Thank you very much for the clarification, much appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor. There are no further questions or comments. I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 13, consent agenda. 13A, animal control report year to date. B, building report October 2024. C, meeting minutes RBCC March 19th, 2024. D, meeting minutes RBCC April 23rd, 2024. E, meeting minutes RBCC May 28th, 2024. F, meeting minutes RBCC September 17th, 2024. G, certificate of appreciation Royal Canadian Legion. H, letter to council Hammond Road washout. I, donation request St. John Regional Hospital. J, UMNB summary speech from the drone NB 2024. K, letter thank you UMNB, and consent agenda. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the consent agenda items for November 25th, 2024. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Bellman. Do I have a second? Councillor Burpee, thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thanks. And we'll move on to council reports, and we'll start with Councillor McIntosh Lawrence.
Thank you. On November 19th, we had the first Recreation Hub Advisory Committee meeting. So that was an exciting night. It was facilitated by our C Strategies Megan, and this committee acts as in an advisory capacity to council. So basically, the committee will meet once a month and will strategize and discuss ideas and advise to council on where we think the recreation hub what it should entail, and their different ideas and how they feel it should look in the future. So it was a great first meeting. And November 24th, yesterday, I participated in the Dirt Road Parade. It was well attended and the weather was great and it was really fun. So congratulations and thank you to the organizers of that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Balcom.
Thank you, Your Worship. On November 11th, which seems like a long time ago now, but that's my first report since then, along with yourself and a number of other councillors and our CAO, attended the Remembrance Day service at the Veterans Peace Park. Despite the inclement weather, we still had a very, very good turnout. And marching parade this time, it was led by 14 Royal Canadian Mounted Police members, most I've ever seen in Grand Bay at any one time. And that particular day always brings a mixed bag of emotions, and it was great to see the townspeople from all ages there. And also last Wednesday evening, along with yourself, Your Worship, and the CAO, the Fire Chief, and our Development Officer, I attended a developers networking session, which was hosted and organized by Envision St. John. We met with a number of developers and other connections, and we are following up with some of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bailman.
Well, had a ProCues meeting last October 30th, and that's all I did. I had on vacation and it's done.
That's right. Well, I hope you had a good time, Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Burpee.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we'll start November 11th. I would like to echo all of the comments made by Councillor Balcom on attending the remembrance ceremony. Despite the rainy weather, it was really well attended, and that's such a nice thing to see, such support for our veterans. Also on the 13th, I attended the Home Hardware Ladies Night, which was packed. They've extended it this year, so congratulations to them for another successful night. I spent some money and all of my own Christmas presents for myself. And then yesterday was the Christmas Dirt Road Parade in the Ward 2 area, which was really well attended. It was a lot more additions to the parade than there were last year. So it was really, really fun, and Santa was awesome, and it was a great time, and that's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Toole.
Thanks. I also had the privilege of attending the Remembrance Day ceremony, which was amazing. And I also went to the Home Hardware Ladies Night, which not only attracts people from here, but people from all in the city, and you have friends from KB that I knew. It's getting a big crowd, so it was a big hit. Something I did have the pleasure of attending earlier this week with the mayor, we went to the Westfield School Career Fair to talk about career politics and municipal government, and the grade 5s, I think it was an event mainly for them. They came in with their clipboards and their questions. It was amazing. But we also got to meet a lot of the kids from all the other classes. And as they got younger, the stickers got more and more popular. But it was a really, really, really cute event. And that school, along with all our other schools, are a gem. The teachers are great. The kids are great. It was really cool, and it was really fun to be allowed to participate in. Also to see the different careers that were there. It was really, really a nice time. So I guess the last thing I want to make of that, I just wanted to say how great it is, and kudos to our community vitality group for the trees, like the trees that are lit up. I've had more comments on those trees than on anything else, and I know that Councillor Sorensen and Councillor Burpee were involved in the design of that, and I've had a few people say they even like them better where they are now than where they used to be, because it's kind of when you enter the town. So those were great. And I also had the privilege of seeing, along with a couple of daycare groups, the holiday train when it came through the town. So that was kind of a mini start to the holiday celebration. So it's been a really fun, and I guess a lot of community stuff going on the last couple of weeks.
Thank you very much. I'll try and keep mine short. I think you all covered a lot of the things that I attended as well. So with the changing of the government, my capacity as president of UMNB, I've had a lot of meetings with the new government, and those will continue, and so we'll continue to push the work of fiscal reform and property tax reform forward, which will have an effect on everybody in the town and everybody in the province. So I guess there were so many highlights from the last few weeks, it's hard to just focus on one. The Westfield was amazing. I'd thank the teachers for inviting us to be there and talk about what it is we do and what kind of qualifications you need to do and how long are your hours, how many days do you work, do you have cats? You know, there are all kinds of questions like that. It was wonderful, I loved it. I had the privilege of attending the speech from the throne with the opening of the legislature just a week or so ago, and that was wonderful. And then going over to the reception at the Lieutenant Governor's afterwards is always a wonderful event, and it was nice to visit with Her Honor and just reminisce a little bit about when she lived here in Grand Bay-Westfield. So that was a wonderful opportunity. Home Harper's Ladies Night, I mean, I can't say anything more than already has been said about that. Just thank you to Justine and the organizers. I attended the inaugural Recreation Advisory Committee meeting, and I thanked them in person, but I want to thank them in public, all the committee members that have put their names forward. Everybody that applied, but also everyone that is going to be working on that committee going forward, helping to shape what our community is going to be looking like in the future. I attended the Envision St. John Developer Engagement Session along with Councillor Balcom and our CAO and our Deputy CAO and our Development Officer. That's going to be a great night. As everybody knows, it's one of our priorities to increase development in the town and make sure our people have places to live, new families have a place to come and settle. Our seniors have a place to downsize to, so this is another step on the road to making those things happen. And again, the annual Dirt Road Parade, I mean, that's gotta be one of my favorite homegrown grassroots traditions here in the town of Grand Bay-Westfield. And thank you to Councillor McIntosh Lawrence and to Robin Sutton for providing, Councillor Grove and Robin Sutton provided the side-by-side that we decorated and were able to be in the parade with. It was really a ton of fun. So thank you to Amber LeBlanc and everybody in the Westfield District Recreation Association for putting that on. It was really wonderful. So with that, I will move on to business arising from committee of the whole. There being none, I'll move on to everyone's favorite, item 16, adjournment. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield adjourn the meeting at 8:27 p.m. And do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Berkey. Do I have a second? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. All in favor? Contrary minded? The motion is carried. Thank you, council, and thank you to the leadership team and all of our staff.